America's foreign policy logic, once reserved for distant lands and far-off conflicts, has come home to roost, and not in a good way. The strategies and justifications we once used to shape the world beyond our borders are now shaping the world inside our own. For years, we justified interventions abroad with flexible, self-serving reasons. Oil, democracy, vital interests, all catchphrases that mask deeper motives. These were often just code for keeping our friends in power, maintaining influence and protecting our own status. Now, that same logic is being used in our own politics. Terms like de-Baathification are tossed around to describe purging civil servants as if loyalty tests are the new norm. It's as if we're fighting insurgents in our own agencies, treating public servants as if they're enemies within. We're treating political disagreements like existential threats where compromise is seen as weakness and every opponent is an adversary. Every debate is now framed as a battle for the nation's soul, with no room for nuance or understanding. The language of war has infected city councils and PTA meetings, places once meant for community, now echoing with division. Bike lanes are debated like UN resolutions, and mayors joke about no-fly zones over high school football games, blurring the line between satire and reality. We've rebuilt our domestic politics with the worst parts of our foreign policy: endless outrage, zero self-awareness, and a constant sense of crisis. The absurdity is staggering and dangerous. If we don't recognize this shift, we risk losing the very things we once claimed to protect. When tragedy strikes, you'd hope for unity and solutions, a moment where communities come together seeking comfort and answers in the face of loss. Instead, we get the outrage Olympics, blame assigned instantly along party lines as if scoring points matters more than understanding what really happened. Take a recent double homicide in Minnesota. Before any facts emerged, the conversation was hijacked by speculation about the suspect's politics, overshadowing the victims and the deeper causes behind the tragedy. The why is ignored. The how is lost. The real story gets buried beneath noise and finger-pointing. We skip hard questions about mental health, gun access, and systemic failures, issues that demand honest, difficult conversations, but rarely get them. Every tragedy becomes a partisan scorecard, with each side eager to claim a win or assign blame rather than seek solutions. If the perpetrator fits your narrative, it's instantly held up as proof of the other side's evil, fuel for outrage and division. If not, it's just thoughts and prayers. A phrase that's become a stand-in for inaction and empty gestures. We've become emotional accountants, calculating political profit from grief, measuring every loss in terms of its value to our side. This endless cycle of outrage and inaction means real problems go unsolved, and the root causes are left to grow. We lurch from one preventable tragedy to the next, armed only with new talking points and fresh outrage, but little progress. The real issues fester, unaddressed, left behind as the world moves on, waiting for the next headline to repeat the cycle. Imagine a crime by an undocumented immigrant, instant crisis, wall-to-wall coverage, calls for sweeping reform. But when a mass shooting by a citizen happens, the response is muted thoughts, prayers, and political theatre. One tragedy sparks national mobilization, the other, resignation. The double standard is glaring. We treat some deaths as existential threats, others as the cost of freedom. Our system values victims based on narrative convenience, not human loss. Why does one kind of violence demand action, while another is met with shrugs? Because one is politically easy, the other requires us to confront our own failures. We choose the simple enemy over the hard truth. Senator Mike Lee of Utah is a case study in political cynicism. After a political murder in Minnesota, he tweeted, "This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way," then pinned it for all to see. No condolences, no unity, just partisan point scoring. This is the same senator who dismissed aid for 9/11's first responders, but leaps to weaponize tragedy when it suits him. For politicians like Lee, outrage is a tool, not a principle. The goal isn't solutions, it's to win the news cycle and stoke partisan rage. Meanwhile, real problems are ignored and the cycle of cynicism deepens. America's politics are like a funhouse mirror, distorted, contradictory, and often completely detached from reality. What we see is rarely the truth, but a warped version that's easier to accept. We build walls out of fear, hoping to keep threats out, yet we ignore the violence and pain festering within our own communities. We loudly decry tyranny over masks and mandates, but at the same time, some fantasize about purging political rivals as if that would solve our problems. Outrage is easier than self-reflection. It's simpler to point fingers than to look inward and ask tough questions about our own beliefs. We cling to simple narratives, repeating slogans and avoiding the hard, necessary conversations about guns, rhetoric, and our shared responsibility for the future. The result? Trust in our institutions crumbles, political violence grows more common, and our global standing slowly erodes as we turn on each other. We argue over crumbs while the house burns, ignoring the urgent needs of our infrastructure, the mental health crisis, and the real solutions that could help us all. We can keep chasing outrage, lost in our own reflections, or we can step away from the mirror and finally face our problems honestly together. That means practicing empathy, seeking compromise, and admitting that our side isn't always right, no matter how uncomfortable that feels. It's time to stop fighting imaginary wars and start rebuilding at home, where real change is possible if we choose to work together.